Good evening and welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns Hour here on YouTube and DLive. My name is Tom Luongo. I hope you're all having a great day. I hope you all had a good Father's Day if you happen to be fathers. It's Monday night. It is June 17th. It's 2019 and we've got a lot to talk about. Tonight I want to talk about, we're going to follow up on what we talked about on Friday. We're going to talk about crypto. We're going to talk about money. Got some good feedback again. Yeah, I don't want to talk about geopolitics tonight. So for those of you who are going to tune in and talk about geopolitics, it may be at the end of the show. We may do that later on, but I'm not interested in doing tactical analysis of what's happening in the world today, because I think it's important that we get back down to brass tacks and we get back to some fundamentals and some basics about what it is that why it is and what it is we're actually advocating for. All right, so before we get too far along here and we wait for some people to get into the stream, I will remind you that you can follow my work over at tomluongo.me. You can also find me on Twitter every once in a while when I have time or inclination to actually post something on Twitter over at TFL1728. You can DM me there if you want to get a hold of me directly. And you can, of course, sign up for the Gold Goats and Guns newsletter over at over at Patreon and Patreon/Gold Goats and Guns. And of course, if you want to support the stream or support the channel in any way you can, there are links down below to all of this stuff. You can donate in crypto, you can install Brave, and you can tip the channel that way and encourage other YouTube channels and other content providers to get verified on Brave and become a verified publisher on Brave, so that the time you spend browsing and viewing ads on Brave, you can use to tip directly your favorite content publishers and get them off the Google hamster wheel. So let's Joe Keeson is here. I guess we can start the show. All right. So now that we have that, let's get started. What do I want to talk about today? Well, I've got a post up on my blog right now. I just finished this afternoon and spent a lot of time on it today. Really was thinking about a lot of things, especially over the weekend. And this last issue of my newsletter really got me thinking about monetary theory again in a way that I hadn't really talked about in a couple of years. Like, God, I hate it when my hat's on wrong. All right, because all I can do is sit here and look at my head and go, that's just off, and drives my OCD nuts. So, between the OCD and the anxiety, I don't know how I get anything the hell done anymore. All right, so over the weekend we were discussing a variety of things crypto-wise, and if anybody noticed, this afternoon we hit a new high or recent high in Bitcoin at 9,400 or so. Did we actually hit 9,400? We're trading at 9,300 right now as I do this, and I'm looking at various altcoins, and they're all moving in lockstep. I like what I'm seeing out of things like Litecoin and Dash and Monero and a few others, all making perfect sense in terms of how they're moving relative to their relative to some interesting metrics that are starting to get some traction around the internet vis-a-vis how you evaluate the potential valuation of a crypto asset. So I'm not going to get into tonight. I want to go back into brass tacks and go back into monetary theory. I want to follow up on some things I talked about at the end of the show with ArcVault over right at the end, where I kind of didn't mean to like talk down or blow them off or anything, but just to say that there comes a point where it's my views on money and on property and on fraud that are the basis for why I don't really differentiate in any way between any kind of the differences in various collectivist systems do not interest me. Because at the end of the day, they are all faulty, and they will all fail in every way, in different ways, but they will all fail. And they will fail because of the fraud. They will fail because of the lack of respect for individual property rights and the lack of respect for the individual, which will, no matter what you do, will either corrupt the monetary system most likely corrupt the monetary system in such a way as to distort prices and therefore alter the structure of production within a given economy, no matter how big or how small, that will eventually cause its own demise through the consumption of, and therefore a lack of, a pool of real savings to support whatever economic activity is in evidence, depending on whatever economic system you're talking about. It doesn't matter if you're talking about your town or your state or your country or your world or even just your household. So it's oh no, Arkvall, I was thinking about what we were talking about over the weekend, and every once in a while I'll do this where I didn't mean to, because he's in the chat tonight and he just said something. I know it's not personal, dude. And I know it's not personal, but it's a failing of mine every once in a while to just kind of want to shorthand something. I didn't want to go into the long discussion. And then it'll come out wrong. And I didn't want you to, and I was thinking about it a lot over the weekend. And then I was thinking about other things as well. And we got into, and I was reading Caitlin Long's latest article over at Forbes about Facebook's stablecoin that they're proposing, along with getting sent this morning, actually, first thing I woke up this morning, a talk of hers about Bitcoin and about blockchain and about how it will save us from Wall Street that she gave at a Mises weekend over in San Francisco about during May of last year, which is really interesting timing wise, because last May, when was the last time I wrote a sincere kind of theoretical article or philosophical article about Bitcoin. I haven't really touched on the subject since then. It's been more, we've been doing more the strategic and tactical stuff, and not really the philosophy and the monetary philosophy as to why Bitcoin, why all of these other, why gold, why cryptos, and why these things are important, and why Bitcoin in particular is a very important mutation in the history of money. So this is what we're going to talk about tonight. And I'm going to stop talking around it. I'm going to try and get comfortable. I'm not really seated in my chair in such a way that I'm actually comfortable tonight. And it is ultimately, why we have to we have to sit down and get back to monetary basics in order to understand why we're at this very interesting moment in time. I apologize, I didn't actually prepare any notes tonight to make sure that I kept myself on target, so I may flit about a bit. I've also had way too much sugar today, so this is not good for me. But it's important that we do this, okay? So let's get back down to the basics, right? Let's talk about what makes money a money and why Bitcoin. Because I know there's many of you, maybe not here tonight, but I know there's many of you who do follow me who are still very skeptical about crypto assets in general. They just don't fundamentally get it. It's hard for people to wrap their brains around what it is that makes cryptos and why they're even valuable in the first place. And the whole purpose of being, in effect, a gold bug was to get away from electronic money. See, the problem is the conflation of debt as the basis of the monetary system and the electronic nature of the current monetary system. The conflating of those two things as both being necessary and evil is wrong. There's nothing wrong with an electronic money per se. There is a problem with the electronic version of the dollar that we have today, in which a single issuer, the Fed and or Treasury Department, but really the Fed, has ultimate control over how many of the new money units are going to come into being. And to be honest with you, if you take it one step further, and both Caitlin Long, and of course you guys know that I follow Jeff Snyder over at Lombard Partners, both of them will tell you the same thing in many ways that I'll tell you, which is that even the Fed isn't really in control of how many dollars there are in existence. It's really the shadow banking system, and what Jeff Snyder calls the Eurodollar system, and what is commonly referred to as the shadow banking system. It's the ability to create credit dollars and credit money out of thin air, and they're really the monetary engine at this point. And something that Caitlin Long talked about in her talk that I watched this morning, and I just found it fascinating that somebody else was actually thinking about crypto assets in the same way that I was, because I haven't really heard sophisticated arguments about people who understand the shadow banking system and understand Bitcoin and understand gold, and then are able to put all those three things together. I'm one of the very few people that I know of that actually does this. Because for the most part, in Austrian circles, you're talking about jackasses like Peter Schiff who don't know where they're fucking ass from their hole in the ground. And I gave Schiff a miss like a fucking decade ago because he never updated anything about his about his worldview, and he's still just going on and giving you basically Austrian 101 buy gold. Well, you know, dude, anybody can fucking do that. So that's not interesting at all. So when you break this down, what we have today is a shadow banking system that has the ability to create dollars out of thin air anywhere. Those dollars are backed through the rehypothecation of the treasury bonds that were originally issued in order to issue new dollars. And M0 is based on the number of treasury bonds that are in existence. We create new money, and then boom, we're off to the races. And then from there, they can get rehypothecated and resold and recollateralized, and they can be levered up, and we create new dollars out of thin air that way. But it's all based on debt at the end of the day. Now, there's nothing wrong with an electronic currency per se. Now, and of course, the electronic systems, of course, are the transmission mechanisms of these new dollars, right? Without any kind of electronic system, you wouldn't be able to create these dollars in real time. It's much harder. In previous iterations of this, in earlier versions, it's much harder to do this in real time. Today, they can create billions of dollars in notional credit value in the click of a mouse. It's not hard, and it's a system that's completely it's a system that's completely insane, and of course is only benefits those who have access to the spigot, the ones that can turn on and off the credit spigot whenever they want. They're the ones that have access to the discount window. They're the primary dealers, or all of these people who can go out and create money out of thin air tomorrow and then lend it to you with interest against the value of your own labor in order for you to have the privilege to just be able to go out and buy a fucking candy bar. And I want you to understand that that's how evil this system is. In order for you to go and buy a fucking candy bar in your life today, you have to you are paying a discount rate. You're paying an interest rate. You're paying a coupon through lost value of that dollar over time to some fucking banker. Some asshole like Steve Mnuchin or Paul Singer or Ben Bernanke or Jerome Powell or Donald Trump or all the rest of them. Doesn't matter. George Soros or Guy Verhofstadt, all these fucking people. Everybody who owns a treasury bond, to be honest with you. So, no, actually, it's the sugar, dude. It's not even the caffeinated. It's not even the caffeine tonight. So if I'm a little, so Germ is telling me, Tom, if you really want to find out more about these people, check out Safedine Moose's book, The Bitcoin Standard. I already read it. I'm good. I'm in there. Safedine Moose is part of this process. It's part of this process. So Germ, I'm on top of it. All right. So what are we dealing with in terms of money, right? So we have a debt-based monetary system that uses uses the internet and electronic systems and create electronic dollars out of thin air to do whatever they want and create as much money as they want and fraudulently steal from your future value and steal from your future labor a portion of the value created by that labor for the privilege of actually holding the money in the first place. And most of that VIG goes to pay for the incredibly inconsistent and unwieldy and inefficient payment clearing system, which is, as Caitlin Long pointed out, something like $600 billion industry. Ridiculous. And it's probably at least half of that is just property, plant, and equipment, and people, and ledgers, and computers, and all this crap to maintain all these different systems. And all of it is a waste of time. And even, and Milton Friedman would be turning over in his grave that there's so much money, capital being wasted just to administer money. Why don't we just go back on the gold standard, for Christ's sake? So, so we have that system in place today, and part of the problem with the hard asset, the hard money crowd, is they can't get around gold in hand versus, which most of them own, but then they also own gold stocks and ETFs and all sorts of other crap as well, which, by the way, is all paper gold. It's just claims against other things. It's just counterparty gold. It's the same thing as digital gold or any other kind of gold. So except for physical gold. But they have a problem with physical gold, reconciling that, and then reconciling an electronic version of that, Bitcoin, as a hard asset. And then, of course, then there's the valuation problem as well. So how do you deal with that? Well, you deal with it in the same way that you deal with any other system. This is the problem. So they conflate electronic money, electronic gold, Bitcoin, with the electronic dollar and think the two of them are the same. And like, you don't have any wealth if the grid goes down tomorrow. Well, yeah, you kind of do, because the network is still running. The accounts are still there. The ledgers are still there on all the computers. I mean, unless, of course, we get hit with a massive, coronal mass ejection or EMP that wipes out all the computers and all the databases are wiped. Well, yeah, then all your wealth is gone. So the fuck what? Got news for you. Everybody's wealth is gone. And, your gold you have in your freaking toilet or buried in your backyard, not going to really do very much good in that situation when everybody's going to be, when shovels are going to be a hell of a lot more expensive to dig latrines, okay? Or going to be a hell of a lot more valuable than gold is, because people are going to need things done, not necessarily to be able to trade. Under those scenarios, that stuff's more important. Now, but outside of that catastrophic situation, if you really stop to think about it, an electronic money can get backup that is still privately held, where you've got your private keys, they're stored in either a cold wallet or even in a hot wallet. All the systems are if you store them locally on your machine is not ruined, and the network starts coming back up after, say, an earthquake or something, some non-EMP based event, the network will eventually come back up and running, because there's still an incentive to be mining Bitcoins, coming back online, getting the network back up and running, and coordinating prices and coordinating people's labor, because that's what money's for, is to coordinate people's and to minimize the process loss of trading goods and services through time. There's an incentive to get that back up and running as quickly as possible. The banks would want to get the dollar system back up and running just as quickly as they would the Bitcoin network. So the same infrastructure that the banks would be trying to get the dollar and the government would trying to get the dollar system back up online would be also getting the Bitcoin network back up online as well, because it runs over the same network. It's not like the banks use private networks. They use the fucking internet like the rest of us do. So that's a really specious argument. It's a really wrong way of thinking about it. Okay. So what's interesting here is, and I'll get to Facebook and their Libra, a stablecoin, in a couple minutes. Remind you that at the end of the day, because Bitcoin is secured by math, and all proof of work based systems are secured by math, and then there are the hybrid systems that are secured by money, which are actually more interesting to me in the long run than Bitcoin is. But let's just stick with Bitcoin. Let's just stick with proof of work. Proof of work is secured by math. It's secured by cryptography, right? It's secured by the hard work needed to be done in order to solve the puzzle to get the new coins to be sprung into existence and inflate the money supply at a fairly well-known rate to within 1% to 2%, right? We know what the inflation rate of Bitcoin is going to be in the future. And based on just very small time differences as to when new blocks come out, as opposed to coming out every 10 minutes, one may come out every 9 minutes, 48 or 1012 or whatever. But on average, we should have a new block every 10 minutes, and therefore we'll have X number of Bitcoins coming out over every X period of time, and we know what the inflation rate is going to be. And this is very important, because if you look at every other currency or money that has ever been created through time, it has always been created. It has the rate of new monetary unit production has always been dependent upon the decisions of a particular human or humans. And what are humans? Fallible, corruptible, evil, good, bad. I'm the guy with the gun. That's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, even the gold miners are and while they're responding to a market incentive to either mine more or mine less gold to undergird the monetary system, it's still based on a human decision. And those decisions are fraught with not enough information. Ever. None of us have enough information to we barely have enough information to run our own lives properly, as Jordan Peterson will remind us all the time. How in the hell are we going to know, is this really truly the amount of gold we should be producing? Now, in the aggregate, as a species, we tend to get it right. But as an individual, we tend to get everything wrong. And then either wrong to the high side or wrong to the low side, and everything kind of regresses to the mean, and we get about the right amount of gold produced every year to keep the price relatively stable if it was measured in a stable currency, as a stable currency pair at all times, which it's not. It's being valued versus a variety of different currencies that are wildly fluctuating in terms of the supply and demand. So, Chat in the Woods Bear, I will get to your comment about processor speed increasing the crypto inflation rates in just a minute. It will not. The simple fact of the matter is because as the difficulty number keeps going up, the Bitcoin adjusts the difficulty based on the amount of time it takes to get a new block out, and all it does is it adds more difficulty to the problem. You use more computers, it just raises the difficulty number. That's all that happens. It's a very elegant system. So ultimately, that's the way all proof of work systems do. They all have, they might have more or less responsive algorithms for changing the rate of the difficulty, either up or down, depending on the change in processor power thrown at it. But that's just features of individual coins. Like Litecoin is different than Bitcoin, different than Dash, is different than Monero, then it's different than Zcash, and yada yada yada. They all have slightly different parameters. They also have different payout rates. They also have different inflation rates. They all have different characteristics associated with them, which is what makes them interesting, and which also makes them interesting from a valuation perspective. So now, let's go one step further. So, with Bitcoin being secured by math, okay, it takes a decision out of the hands of humans. Every 10 minutes, at this point in time, 25 new Bitcoins will come into existence. Or is it 12 and a half? 12 and a half new Bitcoins will come into existence. In May of 2020, that will halve. 4 years later, it will halve again. 4 years after that, it will halve again, until eventually we get to a theoretical limit of 21 million Bitcoins. That's the algorithm. It's not going to change, okay, unless they decide it's going to change. And even then, they can't change that parameter. I don't believe they can change that about the Bitcoin protocol. And honestly, I don't see anybody having the incentive to change the Bitcoin protocol, and even if they did want to do that. So, Litecoin, for example, is halves every other year, I think, or every year, and or every other year. It's every other year, I think. And it's 84 million coins. It's a slightly different inflation curve. And that's why, interestingly enough, Litecoin may actually wind up with potentially higher valuations at some point in the future than Bitcoin, for a variety of reasons that I'm not going to get into now. Okay, so so there's no mystery as to what's going on here. Everything is open source. The software itself is open source. The software itself is also incredibly elegant and is incredibly trustworthy. There's nothing wrong inherently with Bitcoin. It actually does exactly what the gold bugs want gold to do. Except gold has bigger problems than Bitcoin when it comes to being a money. It's not fungible enough. You have to create proxies for gold in order to build fungibility in. So, because you can't just take gold dust and drop it on the counter to buy a candy bar. I mean, how do you measure that accurately? We don't have scales that measure that accurately. How do you not lose it in your clothes? And it's a logistical nightmare. You wouldn't do it. Of course, you use coins. But there comes a point where even a 20th ounce gold coin is still worth, today it's worth what? $40? 20th ounce, 10th ounce is worth $60. I mean, I can buy a box of candy bars with that, but I only want one. So do the math. you have to then create proxies for it that create more resolution, right? What you got to do. So you create dollars, and then you set the dollar to, say, $1,500 per ounce of gold, and then you trade dollars, and even that's not enough resolution because the dollars only got 2 digits of resolution, right? Down to the penny. Hard to do. Right? So, I mean, it's just numbers of differences and problems over the course of time. So you can either, so there's nothing wrong with gold, and don't get me wrong, but as physical gold has very sincere limitations as a medium of exchange. And in a global economy where money needs to be able to pass across arbitrary political borders, which is a very important point for us radical libertarians, gold's not particularly good at doing that anymore because you can be stopped with your stash of gold coins at the airport, and the Gestapo says, no, we're taking that. You're not leaving the country with that. But you can't do that legally. It doesn't fucking matter. I have the guns and you don't. Your crypto assets exist on the internet. What are they going to do? Give me all of your Bitcoin account numbers? No. Or here's one. This is the only one I got. It's got $50 in it. Fungool. Fungool. Here you go. Have that one. I'm leaving. The other ones? No. I don't have those on me. But I do. Come on. They can't stop the movement of capital across arbitrary political borders. They can't sanction people in their national currencies. They can't stop people from doing commerce with each other just because one person happens to be Russian and the other person happens to be American. This is a very important point. You can't do this with gold. You can do it with Bitcoin. Do it with Dash. You can do it with Monero. You can do it with any of these shit coins that are out there. And again, no one is in charge of the inflation rate. So there's no philosopher kings sitting back and going, we need to make more money. We need to make more money for ourselves this month. We should print some more money. Think that would sound good? Think we can get away with 5%? You think they'll bitch if we do that? Nah. Go for it. I want lobster for lunch. That's what you're dealing with. They dress it up in, lofty terms and they wear suits and they talk amongst themselves. But really what it comes down to is how much can we steal for ourselves over the course of a particular unit of time, a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, from you. That's it. So now let's talk about Facebook. So Mark Zuckerberg, not content, and it's not just Mark Zuckerberg, because obviously it's also the Wall Streeters who actually fucking run Facebook and built Facebook for him. The Fed thinks it can steal 2% per year, as El Vaquero says, and get away with it with no problem. What they want to do every year. So now let's talk about Facebook. Facebook already wants all of your data. Doesn't matter if you have an account with them, ever had an account with them or not. They want all your data. They will track everybody they can in order to zero in on you who's never had a Facebook account to eventually put together a profile of you that's pretty accurate. Just by who you know. So they want all your data. And now they want to build a fully KYC, AML, so know your customer, anti-money laundering, the most stringent stablecoin from a regulation standpoint ever created. They're going to do what? They're going to create a stablecoin based on a basket of existing fiat currencies in order to maintain its value at, whatever it happens to be. Does this sound familiar to you? Because it should. Does it sound like the IMF SDR? Which is a special drawing rights against the reserves of the International Monetary Fund that that's built as a basket of currencies. It's also sounded different. It's like the trade weighted US dollar index, which is a complete fucking misnomer because China's yuan is not represented in that USDX at all. It should sound very familiar to you because it's a standard that they're going for. If you stop and you really begin to think about Facebook and its X number of billion users, right? They say they have, 2.4 billion users. 1 out of every 3 people on the planet has a Facebook account, except for me. I don't. I did. No longer. They still have my data. They're not going to get rid of it. I can reactivate it tomorrow and it'll all be there. So it's still there, but it's just not active. All those people using their new coin, is that not a global currency? Similar, I mean, Bitcoin is bucking to be a global currency, so I don't have any problem with that. But think about this. This is not a real crypto. It's just a distributed ledger. It's just an encrypted distributed ledger. It's not mined. They use a blockchain just to organize all the transactions. And they have all the data of every transaction, of every person in every country. I was reading Caitlin Long's article on Forbes today, and you should read it. It's very good. 6 points about 6 main points about Facebook's stablecoin. They're going to market this to the, first and foremost, to the third world. Those countries that have been destroyed by the World Bank and the IMF and the predatory lending from the West for decades now. These countries that can never seem to get out of their own way, generate electricity on a regular basis. Argentina, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, most of Southeast Asia, Indonesia. These countries that are always the most vulnerable to a change in Fed policy from inflationary to deflationary. And they're going to market this coin to them. This is Facebook's application into the cartel of central banks. Let that sink in. The panopticon itself now wants to be a global currency. Use it to pay for things on their network and everything else, even though they're bleeding people left and right, even though who knows how many people are actually still active on Facebook on any given day or even want to be active on Facebook. That's laying all that aside. There's still plenty of people on Instagram and all of this other stuff, but this is what they're looking to do. And don't kid yourself, there's going to be other people wanting to do the exact same thing. Now, on the other end of it, we're going to have things like Apple Pay and Google Pay, but let's just talk about Apple as an aside, because Apple is now, I was talking with a friend of mine over the weekend, and Apple is looking to begin sincere research into cryptography for cryptographic solutions, and obviously this is to secure Apple Pay and the interface. Long term, they're going to interface with various cryptos in order to be able to add them into Apple Pay's portfolio at some point. You wait, that's coming with Apple within a year. You'll be able to buy stuff on with Apple Pay at a point of sale with fucking Dash or Bitcoin or Litecoin or whatever. You wait. If Apple starts talking about Lightning Network in any way, manner, shape, or form, cat's out of the bag, baby. That's all coming. So I'm going to get to you guys all got some interesting comments. So I'm going to get to them in just a second. Let me just finish this up. So the interesting part about Facebook here is that look at what they want to do, right? Look at what they're trying to do here. Now, the interesting part about this is that this thing is no different than the Petro in conception for all intents and purposes. It's no different than that. And it's really, at the end of the day, not much different than Ripple, which is, again, another central bank non-mined, it's a big bank created non-mined blockchain for disintermediating foreign exchange transactions. All they're really trying to do is cut costs. What the banking system wants to do is to create the illusion that, oh no, we're getting hip on crypto. We really like, you ever notice how like Jamie Dimon says, oh, we love blockchain. I don't like Bitcoin. Well, yeah, because Bitcoin is everything you don't want a blockchain to be, which is money, which cuts you out of the system so that you can't use your blockchains you want the blockchains to automate your back office, right? You want your blockchains to get rid of that $600 billion infrastructure in the payment systems and reconcile all these disparate ledgers and all this shit, so we don't have T+3 and T+2 settlement for the most basic of transactions, like, you know, that point of sale with that candy bar that I keep talking about. That thing still takes 3 fucking days to clear, okay? I got news for you. It takes anywhere from 2 to 3 days to clear that transaction. When it's approved, it's just because somebody has enough pool, they have enough liquidity in the current pool to escrow the transaction, but they haven't actually cleared it with the actual counterparty on the other side yet. That has not happened. This is very important. Bitcoin does that shit in 10 minutes. Dash does it in like 30 seconds, right? You know, depends on the coin. You can do it really quick. And, you know, like something like Dash has, you know, instantaneous transfers for point of sale. It's very interesting and very cool. And I notice that how you guys, every time I get a donation, I only get donation in Dash. I either get donations in Dash or BAT, right? Brave, basic attention tokens from Brave. I don't get Bitcoin donations because it's too expensive. I don't get Litecoin donations because nobody owns any. And I don't seem to get like, you know, Zcash or Monero or any of the others or Bitcoin Cash or whatever. I don't get any of those because it's too expensive. But Dash costs a penny, is instantaneous, works just fine. I know a lot of you are running masternodes or partial masternodes, so you guys are all getting tipped out on this stuff, and that's what you're using to tip content creators you like, and I'm okay with that. That's fucking fantastic as far as I'm concerned. But when you stop to think about this, what the central banks and the banking system want is they want the illusion of a crypto. They want cryptos in name only. It's like Theresa May wanted it, and the EU wants Brexit in name only. They want it to look like they're embracing cryptos when they're not actually embracing cryptos at all. They just want the technological advancement of the blockchain itself to make their businesses run better, but they still want complete control over the monetary system so that they can still sit back and go, yeah, I kind of want lobster for lunch today. Print some fucking dollars. Okay? That's the cake. That's what Libra is. The best part about this, now this is kind of where I disagree a little bit with Caitlin Long. Because she says, well, the best part about this is that this will act as a Trojan horse for people to actually want Bitcoin later on. She used the Petro as an example. And for the most part, I agree with her. But at the same time, I say, not necessarily. The normies are not going to know that Libra is a freaking cryptocurrency. They're not really going to know one way or the other. But they will have to like manage their own wallet, but it'll all be handled by Facebook and all this other crap. I wasn't Russian bot. Don't take me wrong. I have a lot of Litecoin too. I'm holding the fuck out of Litecoin. I like it, but it's just, I never seen anybody. It was really more disparaging. It was really just a throwaway. It was a gag, really. So, all right. So, that's how that. So that's where I am on that. So the interesting part about Facebook coin or Libra is that what people are going to realize is they are going to realize that it's not a real cryptocurrency. They're going to no better be able to manage the value of this basket of currencies than they could manage the current basket of currencies either. So at the end of the day, they're going to try and create a stable coin based on these things in order to obfuscate the fact that, one, the financial system is falling apart, but everybody's still transacting in these Libra, right? Even though the dollar's tanking and the euro's already been trashed and the pound's already been trashed, all this stuff is happening. So how are they going to maintain a stable coin scenario by just having yet another basket to trade against all these other coins? Aside from the fact that pegs don't work, how they're going to be able to obfuscate that as the entire system is falling apart. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, look, we're not transacting in those anymore. We're transacting in these new Libra. See, we have something new, and it's private, and it's not public. It's not run by a government. It's run by Facebook, which is you can trust, which nobody does. So it's going to fail from that perspective. Meanwhile, there's Bitcoin sitting over there in the corner going, we're just running and we're good. We're over here and we're making money. While all of this is going on, Bitcoin's going to be going from 9,000 to 12,000 to 15,000 to 30,000 to 60,000 to 100,000 while the rest of the system collapses. That's what's going to drive people into Bitcoin. I'll still have all these Libra, but God damn it, I could have had all these Bitcoin. All right. So I'm going to go back through and take some questions or take go through and talk about some of the comments from somewhere. So only an idiot would trust a Facebook currency. Too bad half the population has an IQ sub 100. Well, it's just the normal distribution. Alvacaro, what am I going to tell you? The best way to take mystery out of crypto is to do a little mining. Mark Bogosian, I completely agree with you. I mined my first Bitcoins back in 2010. When you could do so on an Intel processor, or in my case, an AMD processor, because I haven't owned an Intel processor since 2001. Back when the difficulty number was so low that solo mining could actually get you paid. Is it technically possible to go in the United States to go back to a classical gold standard? No. Not without sending gold to $60,000 an ounce, which would collapse the government, which would collapse trust in government. So no, Jonathan. I've already answered Shot in the Woods Bear's comment about processor speed. So remember what happened to the Petro? They can stop you. Well, the Petro was never intended to function. As a matter of fact, with Caitlin, no one had ever gave it really high probability of succeeding anyway, simply because it was being administered by Maduro. He tried to create a new fiat currency out of thin air with no trust from his people in the previous currency, and then he destroyed. No one believed them. So what it did do was it did drive a lot of people to seek out Bitcoin as an alternative, which was interesting. Do futures trading desks and institutional investors, including banks, not bother you? Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. The fact that ArcVault in December of 2017, I wrote at least 3 different articles saying that the advent of Bitcoin futures trading, dollar settled, not on-chain settled, dollar settled, Bitcoin futures on the COMEX were going to be used as a tail to wag the dog to kill the Bitcoin bull market. Within 3 weeks of that contract going live, Bitcoin went through its pump and dump peak and then collapsed. Of course, they create paper Bitcoins. They create hypothecated paper Bitcoins that settle in dollars off chain, so they're not real, right? And they're all just leveraged Bitcoins. They're not actually trading Bitcoins. They're trading some version of, they're trading a derivative of Bitcoin, but it's not actually Bitcoin. So yeah, it does. But they use it, and they use the futures contract to try and wag the dog in the same way that they use the VIX to try and move today, as opposed to trying to move the markets, they just move the VIX. They can move the VIX, they can move the S&P 500 because everybody's indexed to it's just because of the way the markets are all interconnected. Scares the crap out of me, but ultimately it doesn't scare me in the long run, because in the long run, Bitcoin is Bitcoin, and they can't fundamentally alter the architecture of it. So therefore, all they're doing is playing around at the margins. If Bitcoin was dead, as Mike Shedlock tried to tell me that it would be while it was busting back in, I argued with Mike back in, July of last year, saying it was getting below that. I said it would never really, for any length of time, get below the cost of production. And he said, yes, it would. I'm like, okay, it might, but it won't do so for very long. The difficulty number one will then drop because the miners will drop off the network. The hashing rate will drop to secure the network. And then eventually it will find its bottom. And then and then once we hit a nadir in sentiment, they'll trade a bottom for a while, and then it won't. I've been very nice to Mike recently, and he hasn't actually, like said anything in response, because I turned out to be right and he turned out to be wrong. That is the way it is. I don't care. But Mike was wrong about that, because Mike is another one of these Austrian economists who cannot wrap their head around the fact that Bitcoin had antecedent commodity value before the first Bitcoin was ever mined, because there was a market for Bitcoin before Bitcoin ever existed, and therefore it satisfies Mises' regression theorem because it had antecedent commodity value. It's a great article. Just look up that phrase in Bitcoin regression theorem. There's a great article from Mises.org from like the 2014 or whatever. I have it linked in an old article that I wrote back in 2017 on this subject, and it's a brilliantly argued another way of arguing for Bitcoin satisfying Mises' regression theorem. I've done it one way. Caitlin Long did it another way in her video. They're all valid. I think mine's still I think that one's really good. I still think mine's the best. It's just because it's the simplest and most direct. Which is, if encrypted packets can have value, then Bitcoins can have value. It's really that simple. If TCP/IP packets have value, then Bitcoins can have value. And if you can encrypt them, absolutely they'll have value if the information contained within has value. And if that value is a transaction between IBM and a silicon supplier, what's the difference between them writing a private encryption protocol to encrypt the email for the fucking purchase order and putting the purchase order on a blockchain? It's a difference. This is the part that I look at people and I'm like, fuck is wrong with you? Of course that has value. How much labor did that save? How much paper did it save? How this, that, all the opportunity costs is all built into the value of that friggin' transaction because of the efficiency it generated. Not that hard. All right, let me go back. Chat in the Woods, did I get your BAT donation for a couple days ago? I cannot actually track individual donations that come through. I don't see this was sent from, I don't ever see a ledger of donation from X account or this person or that. I just see a running total. And I can say this, the total has been good and it continues to rise every day. So most probably, yes. I'm sitting there with a lovely balance of BAT to be paid out at the beginning of July from all of your very generous donations. So I would say yes, but I can't confirm nor deny it because I don't get individual. I don't get a report of that. I think you told us once that the real issue is transaction fees. Well, yeah, there's a couple of things you're going to remember. Let's talk about a couple of things. Why do they want to continue to hold on to the system? Well, because remember, why are they angry at the ICO market? Because they're not running the book on all these IPOs. They're not getting their 10% book runner fee or whatever for running the private equity transaction, this and that. And guys are just going out into the friggin' world and opening up an ICO and getting all the money and cutting the banks out of the equation. That's like, okay, if net interest margins are at zero because of zero bound interest rates, and the private equity market and 1/3 or 1/2 of the private equity market has been moved over into the ICO market, how are the banks making any fucking money? Prop trading desks? Only if they have a one-way bet from the central bank. Libra will go up, and then the thought police will block your account for whatever reason that they have for that day, and they'll take it away from you. The Petro was not made illegal by the U.S. as far as I understand. I just don't think anybody adopted it or was willing to hold it for any length of time. That reason alone. What's presenting all the cryptos getting ripped off like the two that happened last year? The fact that, well, how would that happen? You can if you put your money in a wallet that's unsecure, right? If you own the private keys to your coins, shout in the woods. I don't know if you understand this or not. When you create a new Bitcoin address and you accept coins and you receive coins to that address that account, that address in the ledger has a private key associated with it. And if only you have the private key, no one can steal those coins. They're in the ledger under that account forever. If you lose the private key, access to the private key, you will lose access to the coins. Private key is the means by which it's not the account number. In the physical world, the best way of saying it would be the private key is like the lock on the vault that you have in your house where you've stored your gold. Except that the vault doesn't really exist, except that this vault is impenetrable in every way, manner, shape, or form, because it's made out of special tesseract, because it's a tesseract, for fuck's sake, and you can't actually get into the damn thing. I don't know that best. It's an impenetrable vault, and the only thing that'll open it is that code. You have the private key, and you write the private key down on a piece of paper and stick it in the book. The only way they can be stolen from you is somebody breaks into your house, finds the private keys and the account numbers, and then fires up a wallet and says, receive these keys from this address to that address, and move them send these coins from this address to that address, and here's the private key. That's it. It's the only way they can steal them from you. Now, wallets are the private keys stored with the wallet and a hot wallet and a software wallet. Those can be stolen. So, money you're not willing to lose, don't leave on the internet. You put them in a hardware wallet, you get them off, you put them in cold storage, you put them in a paper wallet, you put them in cold storage, you put them in a hardware wallet, and you unplug it from your computer. It's the same thing. It's gone. No one can get to them. Okay? Where's my treasure? Around here somewhere. Pull out my treasure. There it is. Here's my treasure. See? There it is. Not plugged into the computer. No one can get to the coins. This is my treasure. There are many like it, but this one is mine. That's it. And treasure is just a hardware wallet. All it has is all the private keys. It holds your private keys for you and holds all your account numbers. That's it. You're good. All right. The point is that the U.S. will just make the transacting in currency X a national security issue and make you an instant criminal. Good luck with that. That's why you don't want to use Facebook's coins. That's why ultimately privacy coins will rule the market. Well-governed privacy coins, Alex Grant, will ultimately rule the market. As governments lose control over their finances and the hunt for taxes gets even worse, as Martin Armstrong would put it, and Facebook's stablecoin is a perfect example of how they're going to empower the crap out of all these governments to try and maximize and get 100% tax compliance. Which, by the way, if we had 100% tax compliance in the West would collapse tomorrow because there'd be no fucking money for anybody to spend. We will move then into privacy coins that are well governed, which they will not be able to track. And the cost of tracking all of any of those coins that are the privacy coins that are actually crackable, like Monero is ultimately crackable. So is Dash's anonymous thing. The only one that's not is Zcash and all the Zcash forks. So that would be Pirate Coin, Komodo, Zcash, and a few others. Z transactions, Jumbler, they're all variations on Komodo. There's 2 or 3 privacy coins that are run on Komodo. They're fantastic. Those transactions are not traceable, period, because of technology. Okay, so they will never be able to prove that it was you doing it, except for what they can do an IP trace. But again, they can deal with that. Again, they can't actually always do all of that. Eventually, at the end of the day, the issue is the cost of enforcement. All law enforcement runs on the same basic principle. Arrest one guy to keep 1,000 people in line. If everyone's a criminal, if you're going to advocate holding crypto, says Jerma, hold on. That word hurts to say. I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. That word hurts to say because I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I know what that means. You should educate how to hold people on hardware wallets. I just did. I altered all my profile to nonsense and left it on Facebook. Good for you, Brett. The great Fred Harris is in the house tonight. They will be pouring resources into quantum computers to break Bitcoin, and then they'll change the friggin' encryption. If that's necessary. And right, Hypatia says it's one is immune to quantum computing, and two can always be they can always be upgraded. So SHA-256 isn't good enough. SHA-512 is pretty easy to implement. Just do it. Good evening, Umpire's Post. How are you? Good. Glad to hear the bat is help. Oh, the bat is fantastic. You guys have no idea. So just to give you an idea, I should really actually put this up. I'm going to show you. I'll show you guys what's going on my bat account because I think it's really instructive for you to understand. But I'm going to go through this stuff first. So what's the percentage of one's net worth is recommended to have in crypto? Start with 6 to 9 months worth of cash in hand first. Then start thinking about some physical gold and silver. More gold than silver in about a 75 to 25% ratio. Silver is really just a hedge. Eventually, you'll sell all your silver and convert it into gold. And then after that, you can get into cryptos and other things. And then at that point, that's up to you. Purely up to you. And I would never recommend more than like 5%. It's a very risky asset at this point. It's a very volatile asset. It's like you can't put money into cryptos that you aren't willing to lose because it's still the Wild West out there. But if you're going to put them in cryptos, you stay in, most of your net worth should be in ones that you understand how secure its network is. Because putting your money into something like, I don't know, for example, Bitcoin Gold, which is cheap relative to its potential. It's also cheap because its network is completely insecure and subject and has been subjected to a 51% attack, which I have to go into another night. I can't do that right now. But you look up a 51% attack and understand how that works. There are coins hitting the market or that are gaining traction in the market that are on the market now that do security better than just the brute force computational power behind Bitcoin. And those become very interesting in and of themselves. Tom, Liz Sandy says, Tom, you do realize that you could write the book on cryptocurrencies and fund your retirement. It's more fun to just chat with you guys. Can someone with a PhD level of mathematical ability make money in Bitcoin research? Yeah, most of them already are. Real Vision is doing a week on crypto starting today. We'll be at 12,000 by the end of the month. What's the story on John McAfee, his presidential run, and some of the stuff he's saying and tweeting? John McAfee is crazy. And all of that. So Jerma, one last thing before I go into the other stuff. Jerma says he's a Bitcoin maximalist. What does that mean? That means that Bitcoin will rule the world because there's nothing that can compete with Bitcoin's hashing power. And I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist, so I understand the argument. And I do love Bitcoin as a reserve asset. I think that Bitcoin should remain hard to use, expensive to use, and slow. I want people to hold Bitcoin as a reserve asset. I want it to be in the crypto version of the universe. It should be gold at the bottom of Extra's pyramid. And then the other coins, should be the silver, should be the transactional stuff, the paper money, the Litecoins and the Monero and all that shit. They should all be in that level, and that's what we should be transacting in Dash and all those other ones. But the hardcore reserves of the crypto monetary system should be Bitcoin, and Bitcoin should not be looking to be all things to all people. We don't want another gold. We don't want another dollar. They can try to ban Bitcoin, but if they were going to ban Bitcoin, Jonathan, they would have already done so. They can't do it. They can't shut it down. It's like the Pirate Bay. They can't shut it down. Yeah, well, they can try to outlaw private property. It's like they can try to outlaw guns. Let's see how that works for them. They're not going to. They're going to embrace them. They've already decided that they're going to embrace them. What they've done is they've thrown up as many roadblocks as they want to try and make it difficult for you to own by declaring it a commodity. You then have to report every transaction, including every candy bar. Now that shit's going to go away eventually. Now that Bitcoin, this is the one benefit that Caitlin Long brought this up in her article about Bitcoin, about Libra. What Facebook is going to do is going to create a cryptocurrency bonanza. Okay, in transactions that are going to make it impossible for governments to try and ban the use of cryptocurrencies by making them difficult to use, right? By forcing you to put on your taxes every single little transaction you ever made in Bitcoin. I went to the store and I bought a candy bar. I went to, and then have to, because you have to then pay capital gains taxes on them, right? But they did that on purpose. They did it on purpose to ensure that Amazon wouldn't get on board with the stuff. But Facebook going to their own stable coin, what that's going to do is it's going to create a fundamental challenge to all those governments trying to stop people from using cryptocurrencies for day-to-day transactions. And then Libra's going to collapse later on. We're going to use it for our purposes to set the legal precedents to bust down all that shit. I'm telling you, it's coming. Now, this is not going to be a primer. I'm already at an hour and 1 minute. This is not going to be a primer on how to and how not to buy Bitcoin. There are plenty of resources out there for you to figure out how to do this stuff. Okay? I have to talk the high level stuff. Why money? Why this is important? Why you're going to, from here, after that, guys, there's thousands of resources out there. This is not, but a little bit of work on your own will make it valuable for you to learn for yourself. I can't tell you everything. I've already done this a billion times, but I'm not unwilling to do it. It's that you'll learn more if you do it yourself. When do we create paper derivatives of Facebook's coins and then use them to crash its value? Let's be our own central bank. El Vaquero, I think you've got it in reverse. They're going to create. You got to realize that once the big banks sign up to Libra, that they're going to be Libra futures, that there's going to be all sorts of shit, that they're going to be, they're going to try and denominate everything in it. I'm telling you, this is their backdoor into global governance, global currencies, a one world currency and global government. I'm telling you. What if the IRS uses blockchain check to read all blockchain transactions? All depends on whether or not those transactions are private or not. It will drive people, if they go that route, it will drive people into privacy coins. Ones that anonymize all of your transactions. And those coins are absolutely as easy to implement and as easy to use as Bitcoin is. Okay? That's the point. There's already half a dozen of them on the market. Like, by every metric that I've looked at for Zcash, for example, and Zcash is that's like the good one, right? By every metric, use of the network, money velocity, inflation rate versus current stock, all of these metrics that we're now beginning to use to value cryptocurrencies, Zcash is by far the most overvalued. Bitcoin's like near full value because it's trading close to where it should be relative to its stock to flow ratio relative to gold. Zcash is trading like 10 times what it should be trading at. Why? Privacy. That'll give you an idea of just how much privacy is valued in the cryptocurrency industry. And Zcash will not be worth anything close to its commodity value for at least 3 years by planned inflation rate. Based on the work that I've done and I published for my newsletter subscribers this month. But that's how important privacy is. It's incredibly important. The government's not going to care about how much money you spent in a cryptocurrency for buying candy bars. They don't give a fuck about that. They care about the money you made, not the money you spent. Last thing before I go, I'm going to hold on for just a second, and I want to open this up real quick and show you guys what I'm talking about from a perspective of Brave, Bat, and all this stuff, because I'm going to get out of here soon. So just give me 1 second to get this fired up in my browser so I can show you what's happened so far. So you guys know that I've got links down below for my referral links. So if you go and you download and install Brave, if you use it for 30 days, I'm going to get a kickback from Brave. They've set aside a portion of the amount of, they've set aside a portion of the BAT float to hand out to early adopters to incentivize them to get people on the network. And that's what we're doing, right? So I want to show you what my current statement is. This is the statement of what my account looks like as of what's coming my way by the end of this month, what I earned last month, and how many of you have downloaded, installed, and how many have been confirmed after 30 days so far. All right, I'm going to pop open my desktop right now. So if you can't, I hope you can see that. I'll make that full screen. So as of right now, so far this month, y'all have donated 471 BAT. At 35 cents a piece, that's about $140. Not bad for a YouTube channel with only 2,600 people. Last month, we made 133 BAT. Y'all have downloaded it 658 times, and 290 of them have installed it, and 18 have confirmed. I haven't been paid for those yet. I'll get paid for those at the end of the month. Every one of those installs is worth $5 a piece, payable in BAT. And then I have the stuff from my referral links. So it is real. It exists. And it's impressive how much support I've seen from y'all so far in this little corner of the world. That's a $300 a month business just for doing some live streams and writing some blogs on top of everything else that's being done. And that's with this very small audience. Multiply that audience by 10x. And now all of a sudden, I live a lower middle class lifestyle in the United States and like a king in Mexico. Okay? That's how powerful this is. I know you all did it. And y'all, every one of you, I posted that up so I could show you all what I'm talking about. Okay? So it's imperative. This is right. Umpire's post is exactly right. I'm showing you the perfect use case for crypto. In this case, BAT. The future will pay you for data and attention. It will pay you for value. The world wants you. Y'all want to support that which you value, right? We all do. We all buy shit. The only reason we buy anything is because we think we value that more than the money that's in our pocket. Well, the advertisers value your attention, and I value you attending and paying attention to my work. So if everybody is paying attention and the advertisers are willing to pay for it, why the fuck is the platform taking 85% of the fucking revenue? Frankly, I think Brave takes too much at 30%, but I know they're a startup, so they need to take a bigger percentage than they probably should. But imagine if we're at a point where, as opposed to, let me just show you these numbers. You can go to batgrowth.com, and I'll show you this one. So this is batgrowth.com. You can look at it. So number of publishers, 171,000, 172,000. This is for YouTube publishers. Notice how many they're putting on per day. 1,500, 2,000 a day. This is since the adpocalypse. It was starting to taper off, and then the adpocalypse happened. We went right back up to putting on 1,000 to 1,200 people a day, becoming Brave publishers here on YouTube. Historical for website. This is for website publishers. And most of these are shit channels, but still, it doesn't matter. And then Twitch publishers, and they just rolled out Twitter. like last month, like 2 weeks ago. And there's already 66,000 people on Twitter. Number of bat holders continues to rise on a daily basis as well. Okay? I can't stress this enough, how much this is changing. Okay? Now imagine when Brave has 1.5 million people on YouTube. Hold on for just a second. Responding to somebody on DLive. And oh, by the way, I know that we have issues with I know there's issues with the way DLive is like handing out tokens and all of that stuff, and how well it's working. But I think we still need to get up to 200 people on DLive. So any of you who are not, go ahead and make an account over there and get me up over 200 followers, and then that might change the rate at which you guys can earn for watching, and that may change the fundamental. That may change things fundamentally. It may not. I don't know, but if it's I know that we're 19 people away from getting to 200, so that needs to be done as well. So yeah, I mean, but when you look at what's happening there and you see how early in the process it is that we're in, okay? When you see how early in the process we are here, how this is like first inning stuff. Remember what it looks like when BAT's trading at $1 or $1.50. It's trading at 34 cents. All those donations that are, a couple dollars today, when they go up by a factor of 5, all of a sudden I'm staring at, you think I'm going to spend that money? No, I'm going to save it. I'm just going to stick it in my account and let it sit there. I may convert it back and forth to different currencies. I may hedge, I may hedge portion of it or whatever. But look, it may be. I think they're both. Doug Murray, I think they're. I'm not sure what's going on with DLive. Honestly, but it's like I think we're in infant stages on a lot of these things at this point. That's what I think. So there we are. But couldn't hurt. But whatever. It doesn't really matter to me. We'll stay on YouTube for as long as they'll let us stay, and as long as we're bringing in enough donations through Brave, for example. And if they kick us off of YouTube and I got to go to a paid streaming service, if Brave is bringing in enough tips to cover the cost of a paid streaming service, then what do I care? We'll continue to do this, and I'll pay $50 a month for access to I don't know, Vimeo stream or whatever, and we'll do it. We need to. Or not. Or we'll just stay demonetized and unmonetized here on YouTube in our little corner of the universe, and we'll grow slowly. But that's what we're going to do. All right, I'm done. I think I'm about done. So I hope this was informative. I hope it was helpful. I was a little disjointed early on. Way too much sugar today. Shouldn't do that, but it is what it is. The wife made fudge for me for Father's Day. What was I going to say? No. All right. That'll do. If you have any other questions, leave them in comments, leave them down below. Follow if you like. Donate if you can. All of that happy stuff. You guys are great. Love doing this all the time. You guys be well. You take care. We'll talk soon. Keep your stick on the ice.